Corporate culture has such an impact on leadership and management of any company. It impacts how your employees perceive the company and how employees work with customers. Companies can even be known for their work culture, and it impacts the company's recruitment. I want all managers and leaders to understand this high impact element that affects your company. Welcome to today's lesson. Today we are in lesson 7 of module 2. I have a quote from Robert Allen that I would like to share with you all. Culture differences should not separate us from each other, but rather culture diversity brings a collective strength that can benefit all of humanity. Today's lesson we are going to look at how to lead and manage the company culture. Our lesson objectives include organizational culture, barriers to change, and your role as the manager and leader. But first, let's look at a question. What percentage of potential employees would not apply or continue to work for a company that has a bad reputation with former employees or the public? Our options are 40%, 59%, and finally 86%. As you guys know, the answer of this question is coming up later in this lesson. First topic is our organizational culture. Well, it's true that culture is very powerful. It works best in relation with vision. Another way to say is that while culture is what gets you to your destination, vision determines your destination, by John C. Maxwell. Corporate culture refers to the beliefs and behaviors that determine how a company's employees and management interact and handle outside business transactions. Often, corporate culture is implied, but not expressly defined, and develops organically over time. So why should we care about culture? Michael Watkins said, "If you want to provoke a vigorous debate, start a conversation on what is organizational culture. While there is universal agreements that 1, it exists, and 2, it plays a crucial role in the shaping of behavior in organizations, there's little consensus on what organizational culture is, never mind how to influence behavior and whether it is something leaders can change. It is something that you can influence, even if it is not something that you can change off the bat. There are strategic things that you can use to influence it, to update it, but it does come down to the collective behaviors of people. That is why it is so important to get the right people in your organization in order to have the company culture that you desire. So let's look at some reasons as to why organizational culture fails. We see that there is a lack of leadership. When HR creates a culture plan with no buy-in or input from management or leadership, the plan will fail. We see that leaders do not see the value of that plan, and therefore they would rather not get involved. This leaves the HR team with a bunch of plans and strategies and nowhere to go with it. When leaders and managers also fail to exhibit the actions required by the culture plan, then we see that the employees will not feel the need to accept the change or therefore exhibit the behaviors themselves. When leaders and employees do not see or understand the benefits of the company culture, there is a lack of commitment. This means that even if you have the best plan, due to the lack of understanding, the culture plan will fail. As you can see, your communication comes into play even when we're talking about culture. Communication is everything when we use persuasion, when we want people to buy in, and when it creates understanding. The culture fails because people don't understand the need or the importance of culture. We need to keep in mind that culture requires active actions from all parties in order to maintain a healthy company culture. When strategic alignment is missing, culture fails. Let's say you have a high-performing company and you want the employees to be creative and innovative. But the company culture is very rigid and employees are afraid to make mistakes. Your goals or strategies will not be accomplished with the current company culture. So yes, you are making money, but there is no innovation. So when a company comes in that is more innovative, creative, your company will be left behind. So start with the strategies and goals that I mentioned in the previous lessons. Based on those, you will create a company culture that enables you to reach your goals and strategies. The ideas that you create rewards and consequences related to the company culture. For example, when conducting a performance appraisal, you want to look at the attitude, input, and behaviors of the employees as well as their productivity and output. The employees may have impressive sales numbers, but their attitude stinks. So let's say for this example, you have the salesperson, high performing, but he's not a team player and he is never willing to help those around him. You can use the performance appraisal to address his behaviors and how it is not in line with the company culture. You can help coach the employee back on track. You can have additional rewards in place for employees who do exhibit the behaviors. So everything comes back. You have to work culture within your current system. If it is the separate entity of something that, yes, we want to keep it in mind, it won't work. It has to be integrated into your language, your actions, and the way that we look at performance. So why does culture actually matter? Employees tend to enjoy work when their needs and values are consistent with those in the workplace. They tend to develop better relationships with co-workers and are even more productive, according to Balanced Careers. On the other hand, if you work for a company where you don't fit in with the company culture, you are likely to take far less pleasure out of your work. For example, if you like to work independently, but your current workplace is a company that emphasizes teamwork, or you have a shared office space where you do not have that time alone, you are likely to be less happy and less efficient. Another example is, so let's say you are someone who's really creative, you like to think out of the box, and you're also someone who's really ambitious, you want to go through the ranks really quickly. When you work at a company with traditional management styles, and your work responsibilities are clearly defined, you may not have the opportunity to advance without going through a formal promotion or transfer process. And you might find this extremely frustrating and limiting. So you have to think, what kind of worker are you? What kind of leader and manager? And is the company a cultural fit? And the same applies to your employees. When we hire someone, we want to keep these things in mind. And when we are looking to promote people, we want to keep the culture that is healthy and that is going to benefit the company in the long run. When looking to find out more about a company's culture, look at the company's website. More specifically, go look at the About Us page. Look at things like the company's mission and vision. You can also look at review sites like Glassdoor, where employees give their honest opinion about the company. You can also look up some ex-employees and read up about the company as a whole. This will give you good insight into how the company treats their employees, how past employees have found the experience, and if this is somewhere where you want to work. Okay, so let's look at a case study of a huge company that is extremely famous but has a very bad work culture. So here we have Walmart. So I think they're quite famous and we all know who they are. So they have high volumes of goods, but they've been known for mistreating their employees. So employees have been stating that there is a lack of good wages, that the hours are extremely long, that the employees do not get insurance and benefits. So these are things that you have this huge company which can afford to create structures where they reward people, where they have long-term employees. But it may be cheaper for them to hire and fire employees as they see fit. As a result, employees have had multiple issues with the company, and there have even been court cases due to the lack of benefits for these employees. So let's look at some companies with great company cultures. First off, we have HubSpot. According to Blue Leads, no list of companies with outstanding company cultures would be completed without HubSpot, the leader in inbound marketing. Team members have their voices heard at HubSpot. These groups are encouraged to be innovative and make projects their own, as long as they are offering compelling, data-driven cases. Leaders of all levels strive to be inclusive and hide nothing from their teams. HubSpot focuses on the best fit for both talent and clients. Employees at all levels and functions are encouraged to flourish through unique perks like free book programs, unlimited free meals with contacts, and Hub Talk with experts. With its remarkable tools and tech, HubSpot builds lasting relationships for a select set of clients who gain incredible value. There's so much more about HubSpot. It's amazing to know that there are huge companies out there, companies that are well known, that are not only looking at profit, but looking at their employees. Salesforce is regarded as a leader in cloud-based sales enablement software. Its teams, however, the employees know it as one of the most socially responsible companies around. The executive team takes strong positions on social issues, consistently using business resources for good. This company wants the employees to volunteer and to engage with their community. This is a part of the pillars that they have for their employee experience. DHL stands out in how it is enriched by its dynamic and multicultural atmosphere. The company cares with a range of initiatives such as unique integrated learning platforms that sparks talent development. Workplace wellness is another cornerstone, with annual events and long-term programs to safeguard employees' health. And again, this is such an important example of a company that has the wealth, the infrastructure. They are investing in the development of their employees and they are looking after their health. As a result, they are well known, they have great reviews, and people want to work there. Finally, Mars is a family-owned company with a workplace culture driven by 5 principles of quality, responsibility, mutuality, efficiency, and freedom. You don't find micromanagement here, just a commitment to trust and teamwork. Pet owners in particular have lots of love about Mars, which is known for a number of charitable initiatives to help animals. So there you have 4 examples of companies who care about employees, of companies who are taking their culture seriously, and as a result, they are well known for it. People want to work there, and these companies are successful. So we can see there's a pattern that if everything is going well, if you have good systems, good leadership, good management, good employees, and a good culture, your company is going to make money. Next up, we're going to look at the types of organizational culture. This culture is rooted in collaboration. Members share commonalities and see themselves as part of one big family who are active and involved. Leadership takes the form of mentorship, and the organization is bound by commitments and traditions. The main values are rooted in teamwork, communication, and consensus. According to Ryan Meatley, this culture is based on energy and creativity. Employees are encouraged to take risks, and the leaders are seen as innovators or entrepreneurs. The organization is held together by experimentation and with an emphasis on individual integrity and freedom. The core values are based on change and agility. Facebook can be seen as a prototype for this organizational culture. This is based on CEO Mark Zuckerberg's famous words: move fast and break things. Unless you're breaking stuff, you're not moving fast enough. Let's continue on. This culture is built upon the dynamics of competition and the achievement of concrete results. The focus is goal-oriented with leaders who are tough and demanding. The organization is united by common goals to succeed and beat all rivals. The main value drivers are market shares and profitability. General Electric under CEO Jack Welch is a good example of this culture. Welch vowed that every GE business unit must rank first or second in its respective market or face being sold off. Another example of this market culture is the software giant Oracle under driven executive chairman Larry Ellison. Next up, this work environment is very formal, with strict institutional procedures in place for guidance. Leadership is based on organized coordination and monitoring, with a culture that emphasizes efficiency and predictability. This company values consistency and conformity. Think of a large company that has bureaucratic systems in place, such as McDonald's, the military, or departments of motor vehicles. Now that you know more about the types, here I have the following steps that I would like to share with you. So here we have a 9-step process to create organizational culture. These 9 steps are broken into 3 categories. We have define, align, and manage. Each category will have 3 steps. In the upcoming slides, I will look at each category in more detail. First off, we have define. You want to evaluate the current company culture. You will define your critical performance priorities such as profitability and customer satisfaction. Finally, you want to determine your top values and behaviors, which are your strengths and which ones are your weaknesses. This will help you see the great things you already have in place and which you need to work on to get the company back on track. According to TLNT, here you will think about how you will build a culture advantage by leveraging the values and behavioral strengths and improve those weaknesses. You want to clearly communicate how you will work together to improve these weaknesses since they are holding your organization back. Define the supporting expected behaviors from the weaknesses that you've identified in step 1. These behaviors will be consistently exhibited in your organization if they were your living values. This is a great time to really think about what you want from the organization and employees. You can build on the great behaviors that you've identified and look to strategically correct the behaviors that are not adding to the business. Our next category. Outline the different strategies that you have for the company. Make sure to break down all the components. This enables everyone to fully understand the strategies, the plans of actions, the resources, and the roles that each employee will play. Here you will build upon your SMART goals system. You want to outline each strategy and use the SMART goals system to make a plan for each. This helps you plan more effectively as a manager and leader. You can use the SMART goals to update your project management tools and sheets. According to TLNT, identify a small number of overall measures that support the 1 or 2 top behavior priorities from the defined steps. It may help to have one highly visible unifying metric, even if some employees don't directly influence it. And our last category is manage. This is one of the most important stages or steps that I think people miss. I've seen so many managers and leaders make the mistake of not focusing on the system. As a result, everything fails. If you have a plan, you need to have a system in order to implement, track, and measure the success of that plan. According to TLNT, most organizations have a system to track or monitor the status of priorities and goals. These reviews need to be adjusted to focus additional time and attention on the top performance priorities and values or behaviors in order to look at how you can achieve the defined steps. This focus must be on results and support the behavior shift through recognition, coaching, and removing barriers. As we said in Module 1, you have to create a communication framework that works for your company and team. You also have to select a type of communication to mix with the different types of communication cultures that you can see in the workplace. Real-time feedback is also imperative at this stage. When someone's not complying with the culture change or shift, intervention is needed. Stepping in to help the employee get back on track and understand why the culture is needed. Here you want to use a mix of feedback and recognition. You want to make sure that everyone has been recognized for their accomplishments, what they've added to their team, and what still needs to be done. Reward and celebrate the small victories so every step is in place. So when you want to change the company culture, you have to be ready for change management. Change brings up different reactions from different departments, managers, and employees. We need to be strategic when working with any type of change. So with that, I want us to focus on barriers to change in the upcoming section. But before that, did you know 75% of employees say that they would stay longer at a company that listens to their feedback and actually acts on it? Only 15% of executives said that their own corporate culture was exactly where it needed to be. 87% of organizations cited culture and engagement as one of their top challenges. So this is something that everyone acknowledges that needs to be worked on, but so few people have the tools to actually effectively change it. With that, let's have a look at change management and your role in it as a manager or leader. This section is going to look at your barriers to change or your resistance to change. Resistance to change is the action taken by individuals and groups when they perceive that a change that it is occurring as a threat to them. The key words here is perceive and threat. The threat need not be real or large for resistance to occur. Resistance may take many forms, including active or passive, overt or covert, individual or organized, aggressive or timid. So we see different types and different approaches when it comes to resistance to change. So let's look more at the different types that we get in the workplace. According to the Mind Gardener, individuals remain silent about their views or appear to agree with changes, but they do not act on them. So why do people do it? Because it is a threat response, and the threat activates fear in their brains. You'll see the fear manifest itself in 4 different behaviors. These employees might fight, flight, freeze, or freak out as a whole. When someone displays passive resistance, you are seeing a flight or freeze response. It means that the employee is hoping that the change won't occur, or if they hide long enough, that it will go away. For the employee, it might be a threat to their sense of accomplishment or confidence. Or the employee can imagine ways in which this does not benefit them and they may lose their jobs. These individuals speak out against the change either overtly or covertly on a particular focus of negatively influencing others to also resist or find ways to overturn the change. These people may undermine the change and they have efforts to also influence others. They might challenge you directly, and it will depend on their personality, role, and how confident they are. So what are the causes for these? As with passive resistance, this is usually triggered by a threat response. But with this, we see someone being very aggressive in their response. It means that the change has triggered very specific threat reactions from the employee. It may pose a risk to something that they hold dear. It may mean threatening their status, job, or their intellect. And this means that this person is ready to fight for what they believe in. You're going to have your hands full with this employee because it's going to be a constant fight until they understand the change and until they commit to it. So you need to have general behavior to help this employee. Coach them, communicate them, persuade them to fully understand the change in order to help them through this phase. This individual presents strong arguments against the need for change or in support of the existing process in an attempt to convince others not to make the radical changes. They may also try to minimize the problem in an attempt to maintain the status quo. If they see that the change is inevitable, they might propose slight adjustments in the hope to achieve a compromise that allows them to still remain at the core of the current process and eliminate major changes. So why is this happening? Well, these employees have a strong sense of ownership for the existing practices or processes, and they might have strong emotions tied to those. They might be the original architect of it, and they see strong values embedded in the process or system. So when someone is heavily invested in the existing process, they might feel that there is a grip or it is anchoring them in some way to the company or their role. So when you are taking away their sense of self and their role within the company. Here we see people spend a lot of time wondering, worrying, and talking about what could be. They're looking at what the changes could be and the different impacts. Rumors start to circulate, and often these employees are the base of these unfounded assumptions, which are not founded on fact. Productivity levels may start to decline, general negativity may rise, and it can be difficult for people to focus because someone is creating the sense of uncertainty and it is influencing your other employees. So this happens because the employees are uncertain and their brain activity is heightened. The brain is so consistently working with the sense of the situations, the outcomes, the patterns that these employees become negative. So these employees feel like they don't have enough information, and as a result, they will fill the void. And as they are filling the void, they attract other people. So this is a run-on effect. You don't want to create this sense of uncertainty, and you can focus on this by being transparent and allowing your employees to be part of the process, to be part of the change. Finally, we see people being overloaded. This is a stress response such as moaning or being extremely critical about the change. Or you can see unexpected emotions and unexplained activity, and these employees can be extremely resistant. In summary, it looks like pushing back without any particular argument related to the specific change itself. You just see an employee going, I don't want to do this, it's not right for me, this is not something I'm going to do. But when you ask them why, they don't really have a response. So this employee is overwhelmed, stressed, they cannot deal with the change effectively. It is a common affiliation in a workplace where employees feel that there is so much change in so many different forms that they cannot deal with another one. And a company likes to say, well, change is consistent here, you will have to adapt. But for a lot of employees, this creates this inconsistency and they become overloaded. So keep that in mind when you currently have a company culture that is always changing, always adapting. You're not creating consistency for your employees to actually grow. So let's look at some reasons as to why employees feel so resistant. Well, we can see job loss, bad communication, so people filling the gaps, shock or fear of what is going to happen. Does this mean I'm going to lose my job? Does this mean I'm not good enough? Or we can see people losing control. For example, I built something and now the company is changing it. So does that mean I'm not valued anymore? There is a lack of reward for change and a lack of trust and support. So think again, if you are a company that changes a lot, it is tough for people to know that this is going to be the big change. This is the one that's going to stick, and people can become resistant over time. We need to understand the change management steps in order to be ready for any situation. These steps can be used when changing your company culture or when dealing with any type of change. According to tutorial points, the change is only successful if the whole company really wants it. You have to make a plan that changes everything, and you need everyone to want it. Create an urgency around what you want to change and create hype. Use statistics and visual representations to convey why the change should take place and how the employees will gain advantage. If your convincing is strong, you will win a lot of people in favor of change. This means that the team will be ready to carry out the change and support you where they can. Since the change is your idea, make sure to lead the team. Organize your team structure and assign responsibilities to the team members. Make them feel that they are important within your team. When a change takes place, make sure that you have a vision. The vision makes everything clear to everyone. When you have a clear vision, your team members know what they are working towards and the initiatives they need to take in order to achieve it. Communication of the vision is derived when the vision is not enough to implement the change. You need to communicate your vision across the company. This communication should take place at frequent times and with important forums. Make sure that you are influencing the correct people to ensure that they understand the vision for your change and why it needs to take place. No change takes place without obstacles. Once you communicate your vision, you will see people being resistant or people being excited for the change. So when people are resistant, you need to speak to them, you need to understand why, and you need to look after the morale of your company. Quick wins are the best way to keep the momentum going. By quick wins, your team will have a great satisfaction and the company will immediately see the advantages of your change initiative. So this creates momentum that you really need to ensure that everyone understands the value of the change. Let the change mature. Many change initiatives fail due to the early declaration of victory. So if you're saying this is the best change, it's going to work, but you've not implemented it, it may fail because people can be dissatisfied when they see the gaps of something that you promised and then what you deliver. So make sure that you are taking the time to implement it before claiming success. Allow everyone to fully understand why things are changing and for them to see the value themselves. Lastly, use mechanisms to integrate the change into people's daily life and corporate culture. Have a continuous monitoring mechanism in place in order to monitor whether every aspect of the change taking place is in the organization and if it is effective. You'll immediately see if the act is working, if everyone understands it, or if intervention is needed. So I just have a quick sneak peek for you guys before we go to the last section of this lesson. In lesson 8, we're going to focus on leadership and engagement. This will build on your culture and team management skills. Engagement is one of the biggest issues for most companies. This lesson will give you the guidance and insight to understand employee engagement and build upon it for the success of your company. But for now, let's go look at your role as a leader and manager when we look at culture and change. We need managers and leaders to fully be involved in change management. Once you have the change in place, don't step back. You need to check in with your employees to see how they feel, if they have the feedback that they need, and how everything is going. According to 5 to 9, 75% of employees say they'll stay longer at a company that listens to their feedback and actually acts on it. So we had this percentage earlier on the lesson, and I think it's good to bring it back into this point. When managers and leaders listen, we see that employees will stick around, and we want to make sure that they feel valued. But on the other side, no, not all feedback is useful, and some feedback may not be practical at that point. But we can look for overlapping initiatives and feedback from the employees that can improve the overall company. You want to be open and use persuasion here. You want to update your employees on how everything is going, where you can see improvements and where you can see that everything is going well. You can also go back and change everything if needed if it is not working. Never let your ego or pride get in the way of what is actually good for your team. Lastly, this is a critical step for any kind of change. You have to lead by example. A silly example would be if you tell everyone to wear pink every day and after 2 weeks you start wearing blue. This leads to failure and mistrust. You need to live by your words. This can lead to the make or break of your cultural change if you do not live by this example. As we know, change is tough on the employees, but it is also tough on leaders and managers. So here I have some ways that top leaders and managers deal with change and keep themselves motivated. We want to make sure that you stay positive. This means that if nothing else, you are positive in times of change. If you get into a negative mindset, you are going to break everything down. Your employees will feel it and they will also become negatives. This entire environment will become toxic and uncomfortable. That is why when there is change, even if it is not your change, you have to give it enough time to see if it will benefit your company. If you are open-minded, your team will be open-minded. And that brings us to flexibility. You need to know when to step in and when to let go. You need to know when to support your employees or the initiatives and when to say, guys, this is not working. So this will help you a lot to navigate your own feelings and help those around you. Keep that North Star in the back of your mind. Know where you are going and the reason for the change, because that's the big picture, right? If you have a 5-year plan for your team and your company, that is the reason why you're changing things up, why you're bringing different things into your team. You want to make sure that you have that big picture in your mind and that you're sharing it with your team members. Here we see empathy. This means that you are able to relate to your employees in a much more effective way. Because you understand what they're going through, you understand that resistance to change, the responses that they're having, you can help them and you can give them the tools that they need to work through the change themselves. Because it's one thing identifying, oh, I can see you're actively going through change. But if you cannot coach the employee, it won't help them. So we see forward thinking. So previously we had focus on the bigger picture. This refers more to being proactive. Ideally, as a manager and leader, we want to be ready with plans and options to problems that will come up. This is not an easy skill to have. This is something that needs to be developed over time and with experience. That is your key word there. Finally, when in doubt, review the system that you've built. Make sure that you know what is happening, the result and the outcomes, and where support is needed. Even with the best ideas or changes, it can fail when you don't have the correct system and support in place. This is my personal top tip. Always go back to your system when you feel unsure or when things are not going well. It will give you a great idea of where updates are needed and where you can improve everything. So let's look at that question I asked right at the beginning of this lesson. What percentage of potential employees would not apply or continue to work for a company that has a bad reputation with former employees or the public? We had 40%, 59%, and 86%. The answer is 86%. Your culture impacts your employee engagement, your productivity, and your future recruitment prospects. Next up, I have some housekeeping slides as this lesson comes to an end. Just a reminder, we are getting to the end of Module 2. I want to remind you guys to please go back and watch any lessons that we've already completed. It's great to go back to Module 1, check out all the different lessons, and if you feel unsure, to review it. Make sure that you understand the concepts before moving on. The lesson challenge for today consists of the following. Select the type of change you need to make use of. And finally, create the organization culture that you need for your company. Make sure to use the 9 steps to create an effective plan that you will have to implement in order to make the changes that your company needs. I want to congratulate you all on your progress. Well done for completing this lesson. We only have one lesson left for Module 2. I want to leave you guys with this. The CEO of Zappos once said, "We believe that it's really important to come up with core values that you can commit to. And by commit, I mean that you're willing to hire and fire based on them. If you're willing to do that, then you're well on your way to build a company culture that is in line with your brand that you want to build." Thank you guys for sticking around, and I am so excited to share Lesson 8 with you guys as we complete Module 2. I will speak to you all in Lesson 8.